What if the way we birth is the blueprint for how we build? In today's episode, we're going beyond business plans and into something much older, the wisdom of birth. Robyn Pool is a licensed midwife and founder of Push Birth Center, and she's spent over a decade guiding women through the most transformative portal that there is. From breech births to burnout recovery, Robyn's story challenges what wellness, leadership, and entrepreneurship really look like when we trust our inner knowing. Whether you're birth curious or building a purpose-led business, this conversation invites you to remember the most radical strategy might be the one nature wrote first. And if you're into more conversations that explore the art of building well in work, wellness, and life, be sure to subscribe to catch all the episodes of The Dean's List. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to The Dean's List, engaging conversations at the intersection of entrepreneurship, artistic expression, and holistic health. Experience wellness in full color, where fashion, beauty, and art blend with body, mind, and soul. Embark on a journey that dresses your aspirations in style, paints your life with beauty, and sculpts your well-being in every dimension. This is The Dean's List, where inspiration is always in session. Welcome to The Dean's List, where we birth bold conversations, nurture wisdom, and breathe life into the future of business and wellness. I'm your host, Alison Dean, and today we're in deeply capable hands with Robyn Pool, a licensed midwife, certified professional midwife, and the founder of Push Birth Center. Robyn has spent over a decade catching babies, calming nerves, and challenging the medical status quo, empowering families to reclaim birth as a sacred, sovereign rite of passage. From the black and white images of home births that lit her fire as a teen, to building a much-needed birth center in California's Conejo Valley, to guiding me personally through a breech birth, Robyn's journey proves that the most powerful tools in birth are trust, presence, and ancient knowing. Whether you're birth curious, birth skeptical, or just wondering how we lost touch with our own wisdom, this conversation is your permission slip to breathe deep and push back. From business to birthing to babes, we're going to cover it all. Hi, Robyn.
Hello. So
Welcome.
Good to see you.
So good to see you too. I feel like the best way to kick things off is just starting with, what is a midwife?
A midwife is a healthcare provider dedicated to caring for women and their families and their babies during their reproductive healthcare years.
Mm-hmm.
Some midwives do full spectrum care. So pap smears, well women visits, IUDs, birth control, assist with abortions, losses, all of that. It sort of depends. Midwifery has a great variation across the board. So it's not universal like medicine.
Okay. I mentioned this briefly in my introduction, but I want to understand, how did you come to witness some home births as a teenager?
When I was a kid growing up in San Francisco, there was a family that moved in a couple blocks away from us. They were everything my family was not. They were a family of 5, and I always wanted younger siblings. And their 2 older daughters were friends of mine, but they were kind of a hippie-ish type of family that moved from Arizona. And their mom had home births with midwives, and tons of these beautiful photos of their babies being born at home with midwives and all of the siblings there. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought that it was a very awesome way to have a baby. From a very young age, I knew I wanted to always be a mommy and have a family. So that way of having a baby was always very appealing for me.
Uh-huh.
And so I just always remember those photos. And, she wore her babies and slept with her babies and nursed her babies. And that just always felt right for me.
So how did those moments early on then lead to you becoming a midwife yourself?
This was not a path I ever considered until I had my own kids. I don't even know if I was fully aware that midwives had always been around. I mean, I think I was probably equivalent to one of the many people that even now would say like, wait, you want to see a midwife? I thought about going to medical school for a while. I thought about being a nurse for a while, and it didn't ever quite feel like what I was looking for. And when I had my own kids, I wanted to have home births, and the connection that I had with my midwives really stuck with me, which I wasn't prepared to have. You know, I associated midwives with being at home, but didn't expect that going through an unmedicated home birth would be so transformative for me. But the care and the relationship that I built with my midwives that lasted for a really long time really changed, I think, how I not only looked at having a baby, but what it was to be a woman and have relationships like that with other women.
Oh.
So I think in a nutshell, I really wanted to show up in that way, the way that they showed up for me. I felt very showed up for.
Yeah. Because obviously there's that element of showing up for another woman, which we all can kind of, I think, get on board with. But then there's like that other dimension of all the other stuff that comes with it. When you are making this decision of like, yes, this is the path I want to pursue, because you were so committed to that first part, all the other stuff that comes with it, like the less clean and crisp elements of midwifery, how did that impact you? Or were you like, yeah, I don't care. Yeah, it's all good.
I'm assuming that it's this way for everybody that goes through training.
Yep.
But like I look back now and it's like, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I think that that's probably fair. I don't know how many people think I'm going to be a surgeon or I'm going to own a restaurant or I'm going to own a business and think like, I didn't know that it would be this intense. But you talk to people, it's like, oh, you get to be around all those babies all the time. And that is definitely a perk, which I love because I really love babies a lot. But it came in phases and stages where there were times when I was like, oh, there's life in my hands. Like it became pretty clear to me that these types of mistakes, the mistakes made in this line of work, could be catastrophic and unforgivable. That this wasn't a like, oh, I didn't make it or I didn't show up. There's not a lot that you can apologize for in this line of work. So I didn't start out thinking that. Like maybe I would have thought if I was a firefighter.
Oh,
You know, so I think maybe if you're a firefighter or you are an EMT where you think in your mind, like, well, you are running into burning buildings. I mean, you are accepting that like you're playing with fire, for lack of a better term. And I don't think in midwifery I ever thought that until I started seeing some birth urgencies and emergencies as I was going through training, that I was sort of like, oh, this is not just about connection and holding babies and holding hands of moms that are scared. It really is secondary to this other aspect. But that is a part of, I think, why there's such a discrepancy in how midwifery is viewed across the country, because certain states don't license.
right.
You know, certain states are what's known as unregulated midwifery, right? Where you can just sort of decide to be a midwife and not have any formal education. Some people are really for that because that really lessens the amount of regulation that we have. Our state is highly regulated. As you sort of discovered, how we met is that what you wanted was not an option without having to look and work really hard to find, but also it was a very expensive option. I tend to be on the side of licensure. I feel like there's some accountability with licensure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of midwives are against licensure, and I understand that. On the other hand, with lack of education and training, you can run into some big issues.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole big world out there, you know, huge population that really supports unmedicated natural birth in a very kind of unregulated way.
Mm-hmm.
But my own experience sort of says it all looks great until it doesn't. And it's when it doesn't that's the problem. I did not think for a long time that it was going to be a lot about making sure that I felt confident in my skill set, making sure that I felt confident in life-saving measures for both mom and baby.
Mm-hmm.
And that level of responsibility, I didn't really think about either. I learned it over a period of my training because I was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel that way. But it's not a simple 9-to-5 job that you stick with if you just think it's really great.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I got married, I was my own wedding planner. And after my wedding was over, I was like, I want to be a wedding planner. This was so fun. And like everything else, when you have a birth and your birth goes well, and you're so inspired and you think, I want to be a doula. I want to be a part of this. I want to be in this way. And then you start living what that means and seeing how it impacts your family. It's definitely impacted my family, my motherhood, the way I live my life.
Yeah,
So,
because you're kind of on call.
on call. And it didn't take me very long to realize that midwifery wins. So if there is a family issue or party or conversation or graduation or milestone in one's family that's really important, and there's an issue that arises with midwifery that needs you can't not step out. And I don't mean necessarily a birth. A birth, like everything else, if I'm at another birth, I can get another midwife to step in and support if I need to go out of town, which I don't do. This is actually next month will be my first week away in a really long time. And for that, I made sure that nobody was really due over the week that I was gone.
Right.
But I will be expected and I will answer my phone for anybody that has anything urgent. I won't be seeing patients in my office, but there'll still be needs to talk on the phone or labs to call in or something that's needed.
Right.
But if somebody is suffering a loss or starts bleeding or has an obstetrical emergency or something like that, then I do need to step out of what I'm doing in order to make sure that they're okay. So to some extent, that was kind of a hard thing for me to realize, was that I was choosing that.
Yes.
Is that at the end of the day, I was making that very conscientious choice that that's what I would be doing.
Okay. So in reflecting kind of on the journey to you starting an opening push, do you think that was the biggest challenge?
Opening the space?
No, like facing that reality of midwifery comes first.
I had figured that out by the time I opened the birth center. By the time I was licensed, I figured it out. My licensure process was 5 years. And part of that was just how I moved through. I started midwifery school when my last child was 1, but I didn't start going on call until she was 2. So she was still nursing in our bed. And I had to learn what it was like to be on call, to get a call at maybe 8 a.m. that somebody's water had ruptured, and then have to kind of think ahead and think, okay, so I have to get kids from school at this time. My husband's not home from work until 4. Right. What if I have to go at 2? It'll probably be maybe later tonight. How do I assure to get things done? So just learning how to be on call, learning how to get as much into my moments before I had to go on call. So it would be like, am I able to get the kids home, help with homework, start making the meal for that night before I had to run out the door? Or did I have to get neighbors or friends on board to step in to get them from school if I had to go?
Right.
So just kind of learning kind of the ropes of being on call and being available, learning how to be non-committal to a lot of friends, a lot of people, a lot of invites, right? We'd love to have you guys over. We'd love finding out that obligations were difficult. If it was like, oh, great, so you're going to bring the main turkey for, the school dinner, and not really being able to like commit on any level for the fact that I may not be there or be around at all. So that was a learning curve that took a while. I will say very gratefully that under no circumstances would I have been able to do this without the support of my husband, who was willing to move his office from LA County to our home to really step in and take over a lot of the parenting that I really wasn't able to regularly do. And to go from him stepping in that way where it was like scheduling doctor's appointments, signing up for sports, being there for conferences when I really wasn't able. I mean, it really opened up a level of partnership within our relationship where it had always been like, that's your job and this is my job. And we kind of meet in the middle with the family. But I think there were years that went by that he didn't know like the name of our family doctor. I signed the kids up for class. I signed the kids up for school. This is what we're doing. We go to the library on Monday. We go to this on Wednesday. And he sort of had to step in and fill in with that, which he later said was this remarkable few years of him being able to have the relationship with them that he otherwise would not have had. So midwifery can be very taxing on a family, and with the support of not only helping to get me through school, but also to hold down the fort at home.
Yeah.
Just making it so that I always felt like everybody was okay. So I'm always and will forever be grateful to him for that.
Yes. We all need good partners. Okay. So in terms of opening Push, do you recall anything, a challenge, a risk, something that you faced and how it shaped the path of the business?
I did have a couple moments of thinking. I was really busy setting up the space and I was sort of like, this is going to work? And I had one of the women who taught me, who was my doula for years, also was in midwifery school when I had my kids. I worked with her at her birth center that she started. So I knew how it sort of run, but that was hers. I sort of thought, okay, wait a minute. I'm just going to literally open this spot and have a phone and it's just going to start ringing.
Yeah, right.
So it was sort of just like, not really sure how I'm going to do this. It wasn't as though I had $60,000 in the bank, to open a business. I opened my business as I made money. So I was lucky to find the space that I'm in now, which I've been in for almost 14 years. My landlords were lovely and it was run by a family. And I think because of that, they were sort of not as corporate seeming when it came to renting somebody who had not a huge bank account, not a lot of experience, and no money. And I was rented the space. But as they were building out my space, I sort of bought everything I needed. I bought stuff used and off of Facebook Marketplace. And while my husband was making an income, I was able to take the income I was making and essentially fund the birth center. So I was surprised when the phone started ringing. And luckily for me, it hasn't really stopped. And so I've been very happy here. I've been very happy as a midwife. Like every job ever, it has its weeks and times and days when I think, I do not like this job and I do not want to do this anymore. As a whole, I think midwives are pretty independent creatures. I think in a nutshell, most of us probably have ADHD. We live off of adrenaline because that's what it is. Most of us are not addicts. It's the adrenaline that we like. And this job is never the same from one day to one birth to one, every woman is different. Every family's needs are different. We get people coming in for all reasons. And so it definitely does not have the feeling of same thing every day. I think for a lot of midwives, we hear talk about a lot of us suffer from a lot of burnout. I'm happy to say I don't have that feeling yet, but my children are older now. When they were younger and in school, I didn't mind not really leaving as much because they were at home.
Yeah.
My kids are all kind of scattered now. My two oldest ones are out of the house. My youngest is leaving home this year.
Wow.
So I'm definitely feeling like I want some time to see them. So it's like the first year that I've had to think about time away.
Mm-hmm.
But the bummer for that is that somebody's always calling and saying, guess what? And I would just be devastated if I missed a repeat or something. So it's a mixed bag.
It is a mixed bag. You're a midwife, but you run a business, you're an entrepreneur. How has it contributed to your growth as a human or changed your perspective on life, maybe?
I don't think I'm a very good entrepreneur.
Okay.
I think, to use a sentence that my older kids have shared and kind of the younger generation having babies.
Okay.
The whole social media aspect of advertising and selling yourself is, I think, probably now the majority of what being a successful entrepreneur is. I don't have any knowledge on how to be a really big figure on social media.
Mm-hmm.
My daughters just yesterday were making some adjustments to my Instagram account. They made little highlights. I didn't even know that that existed. And I tried to do a Mother's Day post and had to race in and have them edit it or fix it. So I'm really basic with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they say all the time, like, Mom, the people nowadays that are having babies, they find their midwives on social media and you have to have more of a presence. And for me, I really struggle with that. You know, what I want to follow myself around with my phone all day. This is what I'm doing now. This is what's happening. This is how we manage this. In a way, I feel very exposed. That's a very vulnerable feeling for me to think about. Like, ugh. I also think there's so much of this work that is so private. I mean, not only legally by HIPAA, but not everybody wants their kids online or they want their story online. And so opening up some kind of social media following about what I do, I'm very uncomfortable. I prefer my reputation and what people think of me to come from them.
Yeah.
For somebody like you to say, here's this midwife, you should hire her. She's this.
Yep.
So when someone says, you know, who are you as a midwife? That question itself makes me very uncomfortable because I can say anything. Oh, I'm very, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's like people who know me at work know me very differently than I know myself. And so I really want my bio to be written by them. I don't want to write my own bio. I want people to kind of take care of that for me.
Okay.
And social media is not like that. So I'm not sure how I can say how successful I am. The business is alive. It's functioning. It's rolling. It's working. I don't know for how long.
Like from where you started to where you are now, have you had any perspective changes on how you live your life?
I think my life has run pretty much the same since I started. My perspective on things have changed a little bit. I've gotten wiser. I've gotten more experience. I mean, I'm not the same midwife today that I was when I got my first client.
Yeah.
And I think that's also fair to say for everybody. Nothing beats experience.
That's right.
But we all have to start somewhere, right? So I can anticipate things more now than I was able then. My experience grows every year.
Yeah.
I would hope that I get better at it, not worse, in the sense that meaning like, I don't want to reach a point when I think like, I'm so impatient with long births. I'm so overdoing this or that. I mean, I don't want midwifery to sour.
Yeah.
And so far it has not.
In terms of what you were saying about social media, I feel like you're in a line of work where it almost doesn't make sense, I think, for a midwife to be posting to like Instagram every day. It would almost be weird to me. Cause like, what would you be saying? Like giving like real-time updates? Oh yeah, I just talked to a client. And no, you wouldn't do that.
Since the introduction of what they call reality TV years ago, I was approached by Lifetime.
Okay.
We shot a pilot. We actually shot a pilot
I think you told me
for a show that they did a pitch for, and it was supposed to be kind of a reality midwifery show, and they started out here. They advertised for somebody that wanted to have a birth here with a midwife. I think I interviewed 20 couples, and we settled on a couple that was going to have a VBAC. Her first birth had not gone well in a hospital, and she was looking for a completely opposite experience. They rolled in here. They set up lighting. It was agreed upon early that the birth itself would be filmed. They recorded tons of their prenatal visits, but they moved the office around and made it very set looking. They brought in flowers, they brought in lighting, they brought in certain things. And then they very slowly would say, okay, maybe walk over to the door and maybe a hug hello, which is something that I don't do. I'm not against hugging. I just don't make it a habit to hug my clients when they walk in for prenatal visits. And it started to not feel very good. All of a sudden, there was a makeup artist for me. All of a sudden, there was wardrobe for me. There was things that they wanted to kind of know. Had I ever done a birth for celebrities? Were there anybody that had interesting stories that I would be willing to tell?
Oh.
And I was not great. I was not particularly cooperative. The birth itself went well, but I was not good on film. And when they aired the pilot to the producers, they said, we love the concept. She's not good on film. And I understood that because it would have been very different the times when they just followed me around and I could do whatever I wanted. That was the footage I wanted. They did not want that.
You wanted the authentic footage.
Correct. So I had always said, why don't you come and spend the night this evening? You'll be there when my alarm goes off, when the phone rings, when I jump out of bed, when I have to go to a birth. You can ride along with me in my car, whether I'm going 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, wherever I'm going, like, let's do it that way. Isn't that reality? That's reality, but that's not what society has deemed reality. The show that they were filming was actually going to end up being very scripted.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't perform kind of the way that they were hoping.
Yeah.
So when I think about if I ever did anything like that, there would have to be a lot of things aired and talked about that a lot of people don't. I'm not sure that anybody would think that that was so great. I mean, last month, I had one hell of a month last month. And if I were to talk openly about what last month looked like, it didn't seem particularly midwifery, you know? So, and I just think, you know, I'm over here. I work the way that I work. I'm not open to any sort of a debate about the kind of midwife I am. We have a lot of different midwives, a lot of different styles, a lot of different versions of how folks practice and where they have their skill set. And I think there's room for all of that. I don't think that it has to all be one.
Right.
But I was not going to be the best reality star in what they deem reality.
No, I mean, and I think people want to see things that are authentic, especially now, because there's just so much of everything, right? There's just a constant flood of something trying to get your attention. And so people, they have a more heightened awareness to fake shit, basically, and they don't want the fake shit. If people do, I feel like that's maybe a more narrow, narrow portion, because I think most people want to see the real. They want to see what they think is real and authentic. And I think it's hard for people who are like you, who is someone that presents as someone that is real and authentic, to play a role other than that. So that makes sense to me that that would be not in alignment with you. And on social media, I mean, I feel like if the phone's still ringing, Robyn, and people are still finding you, I don't know how much it's a necessity for you to go down the path, especially I think if it's something where it doesn't resonate for you. There's ways you can present information where you're not necessarily the face of it. You know, there's ways to do it, and there's ways to just pay people to do it for you too. If you know that you're like, I'm not into this, but here, I do want to give valuable information, or I want to be helping people. There's ways to do it.
For me, a lot of it is just, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but it is generational. And even myself, I have gotten tons of information on things like TikTok and Instagram where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, is this
yeah,
my
right.
new news source?
Yeah, right.
You know, if you're my daughter's age or if you're anybody's age and you think there's tons of midwifery stuff, there's tons of natural birth stuff, there's tons of everything now. You can find recipes online. You can find religion. You can find anything that you need.
Yeah.
Whereas people are really getting their info that way. Now, whether or not it's 100% accurate, maybe not, but eventually, and probably even now, there's always younger midwives that are being licensed and coming up. And so
Yeah.
learning kind of what appeals, like how we advertised 14 years ago, we no longer do that anymore. I'm old enough to where you used to find jobs in the newspaper.
Right.
Things are definitely evolving in that way. But if just being a business owner that has remained open means that I'm successful, then yes, I've been very lucky in that way.
Yeah.
And hopefully that also means that I'm a good enough midwife to survive.
How has the role of the midwife evolved through the years, do you think?
Midwifery has been under attack quite literally for generations and generations and generations, and still is.
Mm-hmm.
Midwifery continues to be a source of, I don't even know if evolution's the right word. This is definitely a conversation that would benefit having other midwives around because there's older midwives that have been working longer than me that have stories of when there wasn't licensure, when they were illegally working.
Oh.
And midwifery spawns from, thousands of years ago.
Right.
Midwives were all women had for years and years and years. And it came under attack when males in hospitals began to really dominate childbirth and make it much more of a medical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
In order for that to happen, there was a smear campaign for midwifery that we were uneducated, unlicensed, unsanitary, right? It's deep-seated in racism, which has not done anything to improve the maternal mortality rate that we have, right? So technology has definitely been a factor, but like most women's issues, being kind of stuck under the thumb of a male-dominated field has not been great, not been helpful.
Yeah.
Our rules and regulations are constantly being redone, reworded, reviewed. Our laws and rules are changing constantly. Rules with midwifery vary state by state. I think I mentioned that earlier. In some states, you have more autonomy than in others, but for the most part, we're pretty regulated.
Yeah.
Which I think most of us would agree is detrimental to women.
Okay.
But how many years have we said that we don't have autonomy over our bodies? And that isn't getting any better. So, you can blame technology a little bit. I mean, on the other hand, if you're somebody that has really benefited, we have ways of looking at babies in utero that we would never have been able to see years and years ago. Now, whether or not that means that we can do anything about the issues that we find, that's a different discussion, right? But modern medicine is modern medicine. And I think with all the benefits, there are also downsides and risks, right?
Yes.
If we're able to save the life of a baby earlier and earlier as time goes on, that sounds really great.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
To save the life of a baby earlier and earlier? That seems like a win.
But maybe not. If you would typically have a baby that maybe wouldn't survive past week, 20, 21, and now there's ways to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we don't lose them that young, but at what expense?
Oh, that's a very good point.
Okay.
Right.
So that's a huge answer that, I can go off into tons of little sub answers, right? But yes, midwifery has changed dramatically from when women were just allowed to care for the women in their villages, their towns, their neighborhoods, their homes, when there wasn't required to be formal education, when you learned by being taught by other midwives. That's very much how I learned, but I still had to satisfy a scholastic aspect as well.
Yeah.
Which I'm not against. But today we still fight against a very hostile hospital-based system and a very hostile medical board.
Well, because who funds all the hospitals?
Correct. So I like to say we do what we can. And I think that there's probably a lot of us that do things that we shouldn't do for the sake of what we think we should be doing versus what we're allowed, if that makes any sense. So there's what we're allowed, and then there's what we think is right. Okay, or what's right. And, sometimes it's up to every individual what risks they're willing to take, not only as the woman having a baby, but myself under licensure. And I think that for most midwives, that can be a struggle. I don't want to speak for anybody but myself, but just having discussions with other midwives about kind of how hard it is to have to make a decision that lines up with what we're supposed to follow legally versus what we want to do ethically. Those don't always match up. So that's hard.
That is hard.
That's hard.
That's very hard. What are the most common myths you think people still believe about midwifery or home birth?
Misconception more than myths, I think. I think that people are always surprised to hear that we carry medications. But again, that varies state by state, right? So I can't say, well, all midwives are educated. All midwives have life-saving equipment and we all do this and we all do that. In certain states, they don't.
Right.
So in California, anyway, we're all licensed and regulated, which I think for the most part, people like. Nobody wants to think that we're just winging it. Winging a birth.
Oh God, no.
But I think that a lot of people do, right? Just certain things that I've heard or been asked, right? So here in our state, we're required to be licensed and regulated by the medical board. If you're a nurse midwife, you're licensed and regulated by the nursing board.
Okay.
You're required to have a degree in midwifery, to have all of your neonatal resuscitation and CPR and IV skills up to speed. I think for some, they would argue again and say that just because you're educated, that doesn't make you a good midwife. No, it does not. But it at least gives the expectation that you had to satisfy some kind of credentialing in order to sign up and say that you're confident enough to be responsible for someone's life. So if we only focused on the birth and its independence, which most people don't think to ask us that. They ask us all the wrong things about what we do. How many babies have you caught? What made you want to be a midwife? They very rarely want to know, have I ever had to ever resuscitate a baby? Have I ever lost a baby during birth? Have I ever had to take a mom in 911 into the hospital? What was the hospital's response? Were they able to help me? How do I handle myself in an emergency? So those are things that, again, we're not taught to ask or to think about, right? So when people sometimes ask from their list, like, so what tools do you bring, to a birth? It's always a little bit of a pause because it's like, this is where I can say, so I bring a toaster and I bring mitts and I bring oxygen. And they would go, okay. So I normally say, I don't need to tell you that. My answers would mean nothing for you. In the same way that I don't look at my mechanic and say anything other than fix it.
Right.
And he goes, oh, it's your spark plugs. It's your this. I don't say, okay, so what do you have to fix those? I mean, he could say anything he wanted. Right. I say, look, it would benefit you to ask other things that really matter because what I bring, to a birth, I bring everything I need.
Right.
That's the only answer that should matter to you. I bring everything I need. Okay. If that's not enough, I don't know what to tell you. But since you don't know what it is I need, anything I told you wouldn't make sense anyway. So as a society, we have to lean in on experts in our field.
Yeah. I
have a mechanic. I go to the grocery store. I expect that Whole Foods is selling organic food because they say they do.
Right.
And they're supposed to be, I'm assuming, some kind of licensure that assures that if they say that it's organic, it is. I mean, maybe we'll find out one day that that's not the case, but as of now anyway, right?
Yeah.
And the mechanic down my street is supposed to be good because he was referred and he knows about vehicles and he's going to fix the car and okay, great. And you're here because you want to have a baby out of the hospital and I need to be able to tell you in ways that you understand how that may or may not be okay.
Right.
So, there's a list of, all things to ask a midwife if you're looking to, how long have you been licensed? What do you bring? What do you do? What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I do for every single bad thing that happens, because that's my job and I'll do my job and you do your own job.
When someone comes in and you're really impressed by their questions, what have they asked you?
That's never happened.
I love it. That's okay. So then for all these people listening right now, and who may be searching for a midwife currently, when first talking to a potential midwife, what do you think? Is it 5 questions? Like, where do you get to the meat of it to really understand, okay, I can trust this person, in a life or death situation or with delivering my child?
I think a lot of that is built over a little bit of time.
Okay.
I think referrals are always really good.
Yes.
And again, it's kind of like if you know somebody that's had a birth or knows somebody that had a midwife. Now, again, that's such a general statement, right? Because if you go on one of the mom groups on Facebook even and say, looking for this great OB who's more natural minded, 5 folks are going to say, Dr. Jones was amazing. I had such a great experience. And 3 people are going to respond back and say, I hate him. He almost killed my baby. I mean, it really is like personal. But I think referrals are nice. I always like it when somebody says, oh, my friend recommended you. She had a good experience. Obviously, you're not going to get recommended if you didn't have a good experience.
Right.
But I think that referrals are good. I think meeting more than one midwife is always wise.
Yes.
Asking somebody how long they've been licensed does matter, because I think what you're asking about is experience. So someone says, well, I've been licensed for 8 years, but I got licensed right after, I had my daughter, my son. And so I haven't really worked. It's like, well, how many births have you done? And the births have you done equals with experience. It's sort of like, okay, well, how long have you done this? I think it's a warning sign if a midwife says that they never have to bring anybody to the hospital. I think that that's a problem. So don't get excited if someone says, we have a major success rate here, all the babies are born here. That's a warning sign, because that's not a good sign. Skilled in resuscitation. Have you ever had to resuscitate a baby? Have you ever lost a baby? I have been asked that. People have asked if I've lost a baby. I am lucky, and I do use the word luck. I am lucky enough to have not lost a baby in a birth setting. However, that does not make me a better midwife than someone who has. And I like to follow that up, because I don't want to answer with pride, because that doesn't mean anything. I haven't lost a baby yet because I haven't done enough births for that to happen. Whether that number hit for me at 5,000 or 3,000 or whatever, I've done a lot of births. My number hasn't been called yet. I hope I can be a midwife for a very long time. And I just probably at least half my lifetime. And I'm pretty certain that I may not get to reach those high numbers and not have a fatal outcome. And I don't like to say that, but the reality is that heart surgeons aren't always successful. And you can have a loss, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's at the fault of the provider, but a loss is a loss when you're the family who suffers that loss.
Right.
So when I am asked if I've lost a baby, I very often said, I have not yet. I have not lost a baby yet. That will probably happen in my lifetime. And it does not make me a better midwife than somebody who has. It just means it's not been my turn yet.
Right. Oh, it's an interesting perspective.
I think if that statement makes you uncomfortable, then midwifery is not right for you.
Yeah, it's understanding that anything can happen. What are the most important questions someone should ask themselves when they are deciding on this birthing plan?
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until it happens, right?
True. Yes.
I think for some, they know right away that they want autonomy. That's a really big reason for wanting to work with a midwife versus an OB, is there's a lot more autonomy in midwifery care. We don't make the decisions for you. We don't coerce you into doing things. We're used to really working in a very versatile system that could be, well, which is very different from family to family, right?
Yeah.
So what works for you, what you want to do for your experience may not be what the woman walking in after you wants. But for some, they really want autonomy. It appeals to people that want a lot more education. And I think for some, just the connectedness. Also, for others, I didn't know that that's what I was looking for. I just wanted an independent sort of a birth experience, but all the other things that I got with it that I wasn't expecting just added, to my whole experience and reason for wanting to be in this line of work.
Yeah.
I think it's great to interview both. I think it's good to go meet with an OB, to have a visit, to kind of see how that feels. Because the reality is there are definitely some that's where they feel safe. Where do you feel safe?
Right.
And some people lean very heavily in on a doctor where it's just like, the doctor, I trust him. They know what they're doing. The hospital has all the equipment needed. God forbid I needed to go from A to B in 5 minutes for something life-saving. I want to be in the right spot. I am very upfront about letting folks know that probably the biggest obstacle that we would have in an emergency is getting from A to B. Because we don't do C-sections here. We don't have anesthesia here at home or here. The concern is, do we have enough time if there's a real emergency to get from here to there? And if that ended up being the reason why something wasn't okay, how is that going to feel? And some people sit with that and they think like, well, yeah, but emergencies happen all the time. And that's not a guarantee that because I'm in the hospital. And it's like, well, that's what I think. But if somebody else doesn't think that way, so if somebody says, I would never be able to forgive myself, then it's like, then you should probably look into a hospital birth. And that's okay. Every woman should feel safe in whatever birth she wants, whether that's a scheduled C-section or a home birth or a birth with a midwife or a birth in a hospital. I am in support of whatever each individual decides is her route of safety.
That's well said. What are the biggest limitations of the hospital model when it comes to birth?
I like to tell everybody the hospital is a very well-oiled machine.
Yes.
It is a system that is meant to function very efficiently, right?
Right.
There's not much efficient when it comes, to birth. So if it's not naturally like that, then let's just make it that way.
Right.
So it's very efficient to schedule an induction, right? It's like, heck, it's probably really efficient even for mom. I can arrange for my mother to fly in to be with my other kids. My husband can take off a set amount of work. I can let my work know exactly when my last day will be. I'll know that we're going to go to bed at this hour and go into the hospital and have this induction and be home in 3 days. And that's great. That's very efficient. And I think that in hospitals, so much of what we're seeing in the world now, we need a place that can accommodate a large volume of people. We need enough nurses and staff to be able to manage all of those rooms. So we have monitors in the nursing station and monitors in the room and people going from room to room. But it all works really well if everybody's very organized in their bed.
Yeah.
And it's like, great, she's on a fetal monitor. It doesn't work well when she's in the shower. She's in the shower. That means everyone's a fall risk. This one thinks that she feels pressure. We can't leave her alone because God forbid the baby falls out. And there's not enough nurses to staff rooms like that. So I think it needs to run very efficiently, which becomes very routine, very monogamous, and very organized.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of restrictions. There's, restrictions in how much movement you can have in a hospital, restrictions in whether or not you can have access, to water, which for some women has become very much a deal breaker for them.
I hadn't heard that.
Showers and baths. Yep. If you're on a fetal monitor or you're being induced, you can't walk around or be in water. If you're on an epidural, you're on a catheter because your legs are numb, right? So you're already restricted in bed. They don't like you to eat, even though that is no longer recommended, that we withhold food and water from women. Hospitals are still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many hospitals have gone back to having whoever you want with you in your birth room. So for some, they may want not only their partner, but they may want a doula. They may want their mom. They may want a photographer. I think that varies hospital to hospital. But
Yeah.
when you're starting to have to ask things like, am I allowed?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to have my mom with me? Am I allowed to have my husband with me during my epidural? In a lot of hospitals, you're not.
Right.
So am I allowed? Am I allowed?
That's a powerful one.
You know, I don't know any time that a man was ever asked if he was allowed anything with his body.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that seems a little weird to me, being allowed.
I mean, the thing too that was most unnerving, I think, for me, because I had to have a backup hospital doctor because there was only so many doctors that would deliver breech.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, naturally deliver breech, right? And so I remembered the backup guy, he basically said I would need to have an epidural no matter what.
That's
and
right.
I was like,
I don't want an epidural.
that's exactly right. So
Right.
that's when I started talking to my stomach every day.
Right. Exactly. Please cooperate. Please cooperate.
I was
Please do not put us in a bad situation.
there's 3 options here, Luna. 3 options, and the first one is ideal. All right. So I don't know if it was because I watched The Business of Being Born or read a lot of the books on, you know, the women who just birthed in fields without any assistance, or, you know, like Birthing from Within, I think. Yeah, that book, right? So many women are fearful of birth. I don't know if it's because of the messaging that we get or cultural conditioning stuff. How do you help those women where they're really fearful?
Fearful of the birth itself?
Perhaps. Yeah.
A lot of them are very fearful, especially once they're in it. So once they get in it, it's very common to sometimes hear them say, I'm scared, because it's out of their control. Your labor kind of runs sort of through you. Like you're not really in charge of how that goes or how it feels. You can't make it stop.
Yeah.
People come into childbearing with shit. I mean, there's sexual assault and there's eating disorders and there's abuse and there's control. There's fear, right? I mean, there's just normal kind of stuff. And so fear is, again, that's that part of the connectiveness when you say that you're doing this with somebody that you've built a relationship with for a while and that you've realized over the months that you're leaning into, right? So we had a mom the other day that had a baby and she posted on her Instagram, she was in transition and she said, I'm scared. I'm afraid I'm going to die.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh, you're not going to die. We don't do that here. That's not allowed.
Right.
And she said, okay. But she put that in her Instagram story. She said, I had a moment when I felt like I was going to die. And my midwife said, oh no, we don't do that here. And that felt like the appropriate way to answer her, right? Was, oh no, don't be silly. I've seen this a million times. And by the way, nobody dies here. That's not allowed. I mean, I responded. I gave her an answer that worked for her, but it may not have worked if there was no relationship there, because in that moment, that is how she felt. That's very much how she felt. So fear is a lot of reassurance. And I think even as moms, we deal a lot with fear as a mom. Even when the kids say, I'm afraid, we always say, we can do hard things. You've got to be brave. You're doing a great job. Keep going. You're going to be okay. I'm here to take care of you. In childbirth, for a minute, you feel like all you need is a guardian. Like, I'm not sure that in those moments that you're thinking that I'm a medical professional, whether I'm rubbing your head or soothing you verbally or saying, you've got this, keep going, you're okay, it's almost over. It's a support system from somebody who literally is holding you in their hands.
Yeah.
And they have to be able to believe in that.
Yeah.
Which is also sometimes a lot to ask somebody to do in the most vulnerable moment of their life. And for some, childbirth is the most vulnerable moment in their life.
Yeah, I feel like I'm such a weirdo, Robyn, because I'm
Why?
like, well, no, because I feel like going into it for me, I wanted to be so aware of everything that I was feeling. I
Yeah.
was curious. I was very curious of what those feelings were going to look like. Like, I knew it was going to be like not that great, but I was still super curious. I think that's what kind of led the whole process for me was it's kind of like, oh, that's a new feel. Oh, that's different, you know?
Yep.
And I feel like the whole time, I mean, obviously you're also excited to just like not be pregnant anymore. You're like,
Yeah.
you know, like, right?
Yeah.
And I do think it depends on the support system. So I think that that's the important thing of like the people around you who are supporting you. I feel like had my birth gone any differently than it did, I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying right now.
Right.
I mean, I have a friend that just gave birth and she told me what happened and she thought she was going to have her third vaginal birth. And lo and behold, that's not what happened. You don't know.
And sometimes you don't know until you get there.
Right.
I always say, like, look, this is an unscripted event. I have zero idea how this will go any more than you do.
Right.
I can anticipate a little more than you can, all based upon what I'm seeing, but I can't tell you if your birth is going to be everything you imagined. I can't tell you if it's going to be vaginal or C-section. I can't tell you if there's going to be an emergency. I can't tell you anything. I can tell you that I will take as good a care of you as I can.
Right.
In any aspect.
Yeah.
And that has to be good enough for a while.
Yeah. Are there any stories that come to mind where a mom made a bold choice or maybe something that you wouldn't have expected and it really transformed her birth?
I mean, I have a few. The one that sticks out mostly for me.
Yeah.
This was going to be her second baby. She just had her third with me. So she was going to have her second baby. The first was in the hospital, not a great experience. We found out that the baby was breech. I gave her all the options going through what's known as the ECV, right? External cephalic version, which is where a baby's manipulated manually from the head up spot to head down. Sometimes it works, sometimes not.
Right.
There are risks involved, like everything else. And this was a deeply religious family.
Okay.
So I gave her the option of the ECV. I gave her the option of attempting to find a doctor that did vaginal breech birth. They did have insurance at the time. And I'm not sure that I was able to find a doctor that was in network. So that was a concern. Finding one of the very rare doctors that does breech out of the hospital, as you know, is very hard and very costly. And that was not an option for this family.
Right.
And she called me pretty late one night and said, I do not want to do the ECV. I prayed about it. I really thought about it. And that is not something that I feel like I want to do. And I said, okay. And she said, I know that it's not in your licensure to do breech births. And I said, right. Mm-hmm. And she said, I know our hands are tied in finding somebody to help. So I'm just going to keep doing all the things I can do, my stretches, my inversions, my prayer, and hope that the baby flips. And I said, okay, great. And when I hung up the phone, I went like, okay, because I can't really help her because I'm not licensed, to do breech. I feel skilled and experienced, but I'm not licensed, to do breech. And, I saw her for a few more visits and each time the baby remained breech. And she just was not budging in her thought. I'm still hoping, Robyn, I'm still hoping. So she called one morning and said, my water broke. Nothing's going on. I'll keep you posted. And I said, okay. And I thought, what does that mean? I'll keep you posted. I don't really know what I'm doing. I remember walking down the hallway here thinking like, all right, she's either going to get here and this baby's just going to fall out and everything will be fine. Or she'll get here and it won't. And we'll have to go to the hospital and like, oh my God, it's breech. Here we are. And I really wanted to honor her. She was very strong in her decision and what she wanted. She was not holding anybody else responsible or accountable for the decision she was making. I was frustrated, not with her, but with the system of licensure. I was angry that I was having feelings within myself of I can't help her.
Right.
Feeling like I wasn't supporting her in the way that I was supposed to as a midwife, as a woman.
Yeah.
Also wondering if this was insane. Should I know better? How do I know everything is going to be okay? Because I don't know if it's going to be okay.
Right.
And her husband called me and said, we're on our way. And I took a deep breath. I thought, okay. And 15 minutes later, they called back and said that the baby was here. She had gone back into the bathroom and needed to pee and said that she just felt this crazy urge to push, and she pushed. The baby was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around the neck. They just unwrapped it, was born. It was fine. And they called immediately. And I said, great, call 911. Just let them know that I'm on my way and I will meet you. And I grabbed my stuff and got in the car as fast as I could, went over. She was laying on the living room floor, holding the baby, smiling. The firemen were there. They were lovely and supportive and said everything was great. One of them announced that he had had a home birth with a midwife friend of mine up in the Bakersfield area. And she looked at me with one eye open and she said, well, this worked out well. You didn't risk your licensure and I didn't have to have a C-section. And I thought,
wow,
it just worked.
Yeah.
And I was very much in awe of her, in her truth, in her reality, taking full, complete responsibility. I never once felt that I was responsible for her in a way that made me feel unsafe. And she kind of made sure of that herself.
Yeah.
I don't think that they intended to have the baby at home, but I think that that being what happened, she sort of felt relief. I mean, I think that she knew that my hands were slightly tied. I think that she also said, rightfully so, I understand your hands are tied, but I owe you nothing. And I'm not going to do what I don't want to do because your hands are tied. But by that baby being born at home with just them, without me there, also the umbilical cord being wrapped around the neck was not a problem with the breech birth, but it may have been in the version. And it may have been if it was a vaginal birth.
Oh.
So could the baby have gone head down if it was wrapped around the neck? Probably not, right? So would we have ended up with an emergency C-section if the version had failed or if the baby had gone into fetal distress? So her
instinct,
her belief, her thought worked for her, and she really stood up for what she wanted. Yes, you can have an argument against that and say something could have totally gone wrong. Yep. And something can totally gone wrong even with a head down birth. And I think that for her, avoiding the medical system at all costs is what she was willing. And for her, her faith, she really believed and felt very much at peace with the decision that she made.
Yeah.
It's very powerful watching somebody do that. It's a very inspiring thing to see and very frustrating to feel like I can't get behind that because of the restrictions that I have in licensure.
Yes. Yes.
So we go back to midwives doing some things on the down low. Many names shall remain nameless, but licensure has its ups and its downsides as well. So there are definitely situations with women that I've seen that I have been very impressed with.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a breech situation. Breech is often seen as high risk. Many doctors are not even trained to deliver breech, right?
Yep.
I think nowadays, if you're doing a hospital birth and you're breech, you're a default C-section, right?
Yes.
And obviously you've been a part of many breech births. What is the approach? What's now standard for you when someone is presenting breech?
It is unfortunate. There are a couple doctors in the area that have kind of replaced Dr. Fishbein, who is now moved. We were lucky to have Dr. Fishbein live here when you had your baby. I don't know if I told you this. The month and the year that you had your baby, Stuart and I did 4 breaches.
You did tell me that. I was like, wow, it's a record.
In 1 month. I mean, it was insane. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of doctors. The biggest hurdle is financial. The biggest hurdle to try to find a practitioner to do a breech birth out of the hospital is strictly financial.
Got it.
It's a lot of money out of pocket, not covered by insurance.
That's right.
And if you're lucky to have access to funds or resources to get those funds, and that's what you decide that you want to do, you have more options than those that don't.
Yeah.
Some of the options are to labor at home as long as you can and go in last minute and refuse a C-section, which is chaotic and really unfair to everyone involved and not safe for anyone involved either, right? It's sort of like now knowing that there's not a lot of trained doctors that know breech, you're walking into somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and saying, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, hospital people are used to operating under everything being litigious, right? So it's like, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. There's a lot of fear around that.
Yeah.
Somebody walks in like that, there's a huge amount of bullying. They're told that their baby will die. You know, just a lot of stuff that in that moment can be very frightening, not only to her, but to her partner who just wants everything to be okay and is all of a sudden hearing from those that are supposed to help make sure that his wife is safe.
Right.
That maybe she's not. So it's not a great system. But I know folks that have done it. I know folks that have walked in and just said, not having a C-section. So for lack of a better term, fuck off.
Yeah. I love it. Like, we're going to do this. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I do feel for them. It's not their fault. I mean, it's not a good system all in all. They should never stop training in breech because there are definitely surprise breaches.
Right.
That are head down one day and are head down not as common, but they're there.
Yeah.
It's just a very unfortunate situation. It infuriates most midwives for sure.
Wow. Okay, let's do a quick fire round. Answer first thing that comes to mind. Early bird or night owl when you can be one?
Night owl.
Okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Favorite color?
It changes, but right now my favorite color today, pink.
Well, today it's pink. Okay, what's the first paying job that you ever had?
Babysitting.
Okay, that's very common on this show.
Yeah.
Favorite music genre?
Old school rap, R&B.
Okay, Robyn. What's the one phone app that you can't live without?
My phone.
Calling. Okay, yes.
Calling.
I was like, that makes sense for you.
And texting.
Well, yeah, I know. See, that's the other one. Messages or phone. I know.
Yeah,
okay.
Messages.
What's the one word that you would use to describe your business journey?
You got me there. Evolve might be the only word that's in my brain. Evolving. Looking back, what's one thing you wish you would have known before starting Push that might have saved you some time or stress? Buying the building instead of leasing a space.
If you could instantly acquire one new skill, what would it be?
Well, I've taken up sewing.
Okay.
But I'm a new sewer.
Okay.
And I'd like to be a better sewer.
Fair. If you could time travel to any period in history, which era would you visit?
It would probably be to the 30s or 40s.
Okay. Very good. If you weren't doing this, if you weren't a midwife, what else might you be doing?
I would probably be a medical examiner or a crime detective.
Oh, a crime. Okay. Okay. All right. I feel like you shared a really good story of personal power from another mom. How do you think birth can serve as a portal to power or healing?
Well, I think that people typically come out of birth hopefully feeling very strong and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's always what I hope,
Yeah.
regardless of how that birth ended.
Yeah.
C-section, vaginal, having to do something that hard and going through it and doubting yourself and feeling like you can't and coming out the opposite end, I think is kind of a rite of passage on becoming a mother.
Mm-hmm.
People that maybe did not have the best experience the first round
Yeah.
that come and have a healing experience the second round.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's more or less just motherhood itself might be healing. I hate to think that motherhood reopens wounds, but maybe to some extent it does. But I think when you become a mom, you have the ability to heal some of your own wounds.
Amen.
As well as nurture and parent somebody the way that you wish you had been.
Yes.
So I think there can be healing in that. I think there can be strength in that.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with weakness and feelings of self-doubt, but for the most part, I think there's a lot of strength to kind of be gained at just being responsible to grow a human being in your body
Mm-hmm.
and be able to give birth to that and then nurture from your body for a while after that as well.
Right. Yeah, that's beautifully said. Do you think birth has become over medicalized?
For some, yeah. I think that medicalized birth, it has its need.
Mm-hmm.
Not every birth is meant to be at home. Not every birth is low risk.
Right.
I think that making room for all of those options is necessary. And I think that when you have a low risk, low intervention sort of a birth, it is over medicalized even when it doesn't need to ever be that way. Because that's the system, that's how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't a different way in the hospital that's all based on risk. It's not as if you walk into a hospital low risk, they go, let's not even bother with an IV. Why don't you go ahead and hop in the shower? Everything looks great. You're able to hold down your fluids. Your energy level's great. Your baby looks good on the monitor. Let's get you outside for a little walk. I mean, that's not what's happening. So regardless of what level you're on for your labor, your birth, your pregnancy, it's all one in the hospital. So yes, over medicalized for sure. Now, that does not mean to say that there are those that don't need that. There are.
Right.
Inductions have a place.
When do they have a place?
They have a place when situations arrive that no longer make waiting for labor to start naturally safe anymore.
Got it.
There are situations where we need to get a baby out, where labor needs to get started, where sometimes we talk about the fact that is there a possibility if we encourage this baby to come a little bit earlier, would size make the difference between a vaginal and a C-section? There are babies that go into distress.
Yeah.
And situations arise where women are no longer healthy in pregnancy and babies are not okay in there. So there are definite situations where induction is a really good thing. There are situations when a C-section is such a great thing to have and know that we have that when we need it. And many a situation where C-sections are done and they shouldn't be done.
Ugh.
Right?
How do you think midwives make things more hopeful for the future of birth?
I think on a smaller scale, it's too big of a fight. On sort of a broader scale out there when it comes to universal midwifery, I like to think that for every family that comes into midwifery care and has their kids here, or has their kids at a birth, that we change the perception of birth for them. My two watched my youngest be born, and I remember being very cognizant in that moment, thinking that for my son as well as my daughter to witness that, I was hopeful that that's what birth would always be for them.
Yeah.
At home, that how I looked, how I sounded, how I talked, the noises I was making, how scared I was, and those people that were there around me helping me, that was a sense of normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe if they go into making the decision to have families of their own one day, that's how they would encourage their births to kind of be. If my son decides to have a wife or have a child, she might come in with a whole different idea of what that looks like for her. But for him to be able to say, my mom's a midwife, and yeah, I watched my sisters be born. And, that's something we could ask about if you wanted. So I think that probably every midwife would say that we change the outlook of birth for certain families. My own husband was very concerned that birth would be a bad experience for him. Said very clearly that he remembers in science class that he was instructed birth was awful. It was never something that any man should ever watch, that he would never want to have sex with his wife again, that it was just awful. And I think that being married and having a wife and having a baby for him, those thoughts were there. I think society hasn't really done much to improve the perception of birth. We still watch on movies where women are screaming and telling their husbands that they're horrible people and rushing to the hospital when water breaks or whatnot. Home births are not really shared in a positive light. And so I think if we can do that with the families that we help, hoping that makes a very big difference.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it
So,
does.
I hope so.
I think it does. What does wellness mean to you?
Wellness for me means a decent amount of refilling my cup.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that can be anything from spending a significant time alone, just kind of regrouping, sleeping. I don't exercise or walk nearly as much as I should. I am not the most physically motivated individual. I really like to read. I really like to be with friends. I like to sew now. I knit a little bit. I love to go on little day adventures. So I like to go to Ojai and farmers market, meet some friends for lunch and stuff like that. So yeah, I think if I was looking at wellness from a physical aspect, I would really need to admit, which I am, that I could probably walk every day, every other day. I go in and out with my eating habits. Sometimes I'm eating really, really well. And sometimes I'm just kind of snatching whatever I can possibly eat in the moment.
Yeah.
Wellness for me, it's how I feel like I'm connecting with my family.
Do you have any daily wellness non-negotiables, i.e. you can't get your day going without having a cup of coffee first?
Yep. My husband brings me a cup of coffee in my bed every morning, 7:00, unless I'm at a birth.
And that's the only one. So that's the only non-negotiable for you is coffee in bed?
Coffee in bed, where we sit usually for about a half hour, an hour, and we chat in the morning just with one another. He gets up much earlier than I do, but 7:00 in my bed, a cup of coffee. I have to shower once in the morning and once in the evening before I get in bed. So I have to take my 2 showers a day. Those are kind of my have-tos.
Okay, I love that. What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a business around something they're passionate about?
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Anything else you want to tell them?
Instinct. Whatever you're not good at, find somebody who is, right? If you're not good at managing money or collecting money or answering phones or dealing with conflict, whatever that is, it's important to bring in somebody who's really good at that.
It's a great tip. Is there anything I did not ask you that you were hoping we were going to chat about?
I think so. I thought you did great.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for being on the Dean's List. How do people find you if they want to find you?
My website, www.pushmidwifery.com. My Instagram, also pushmidwifery.
Okay.
You can call my office. You can text me.
Yeah, it's all on the website. All right. Well, if anyone has questions, Robyn is around. I'm around. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Robyn.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning into this episode of The Dean's List. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to stay updated and follow us on Instagram at official_Dean's List and YouTube at It's Official Dean's List. I'm your host, Alison Dean. Until next time.